why don't I think it'd probably be best, I'll teach you a short book. We'll do the book of Philippians real quick, all right? I got a fly following me around in my face up here, so if you see me hit myself in the head, I'm not going too crazy. There's a fly up here. Let's see. We have any volunteers? You want any volunteers? Come on up. We'll do. You want to learn the book of Philippians?
I do indeed.
Stephen.
That's right.
Right. So I actually got to meet Stephen yesterday. He come by and purchased some of the files. Actually, purchased the whole package. Right. So I appreciate you doing that. So I'm going to teach you. I explained the system to you a little bit.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to walk you through it. And if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask and see. It's very simple. So. This is the book of Philippians. So with my 5-year-old grandson, I don't teach him the system. And I'll explain the system to you shortly. But I don't explain to him the system. So what I say with my 5-year-old is, can I pretend you're 5? You're a little older than that. So there's a key picture. So I say PETA. And so what I want you to do is I want you to learn about PETA. So when I say PETA, I want you to tell me what's going on. What is the PETA doing, or what's happening in the picture with the PETA. So this is Peter, Brett. Okay. He's in chains. You can see that he's in chains, right? Okay. And he's pointing to the cross. And anytime you see a cross, I want you to think of
Christ.
Christ. There you go, Christ. So Paul is making it known that he is in chains, but he's in chains for Christ. So he's in what? He's in chains, and he's in chains for Christ. Now that's kind of the way I would do my 5-year-old. How long did that take? 30 seconds, maybe. So PETA. So when I say PETA, I want you to tell me that the PETA is what? What's wrong with what's happening to the PETA?
He's in chains.
He's in chains.
Pointing to Christ.
And he's pointing to Christ because he's in chains for Christ. Right? And if you're a little older, I'd probably take some time and say, hey, Paul talks about how he's even used that, how that's been used. We look at that as a bad thing, but Paul has said that God used that to advance the gospel. So he's rejoicing in the fact that we would be terrified by the fact of being in chains, but Paul is rejoicing in the fact of that because God is using that to advance the gospel. So you can expand upon it however much you want to, right? The second one, the key word is piano. So when I say piano, here's a couple of things I want you to think about. You see in this picture, the piano, he's holding up a star up high, and to the side he's holding up the book of life. And what Paul is saying to us in that chapter is that we shine like stars in the universe as we hold forth the word of life. How do you shine like a star in the universe?
Hold forth the word of life.
Hold forth the word of life, right? So the piano, he's holding up a star to have you remember what? We shine.
We shine forth for the book of life.
Okay, we shine forth as stars in the universe. Okay. We shine like what?
We shine like stars in the universe.
As we what?
Hold the book of life.
As we hold the book of life. As we hold forth the book of life. You got that? Does that make sense? All right. So we shine like stars in the universe as we hold. You think you got that picture?
So I have a terrible memory.
So but so you can see this, all right? So if I took this picture away, look at this picture. So if you saw that piano in your mind, you see him. He's got two hands, right? And one hand's what? He's got a star in one hand.
With a book of life.
Book of life in the other hand. And that helps us to remember that we shine like what?
Shine like
stars. As we do what? In the universe, as we what?
As we hold forth the book of life.
As we hold forth the book of life. Okay, you got that?
I do like an idiot up here. Okay.
You're doing great. He's doing good, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Doing good.
Actually, if you have a bad memory, you're the perfect one to be up here doing this with. All right, so what's that?
So we'll see about that.
We'll see about that. And so the third one is PM. The key word is PM. And so if you want to remember PM, you remember the picture for that is a clock, right? PM, clock. Got that? Right? So this clock, what he's doing is he's putting his mind on the things of the earth. So mind and the things of. So where's the clock? When I say clock, what do you think of? Or PM? What do you think of? What is he holding in his hand?
So there's a clock with a brain or a mind on top of the earth.
And he's putting his mind on the earth, right? Okay. So Paul in this chapter, he's talking about how there are those who have put their mind on earthly things. Right? And that's not a good thing. For a 5-year-old, you could say that's not a good thing. You don't have to go into a lot of depth, and you could explain the opposite of what it means. And actually, there's a picture in Colossians about putting your mind and heart on the things above. So you could either go there or just say, hey, when we put our mind on earthly things, We're not to, that's not a good thing. And actually, what's really interesting in that chapter, just as a side note, Paul says when we live with our mind on earthly things, we live as enemies of the cross. So it's very important that our minds are transformed by God's word. So again, I commend you as homeschoolers and your desire to do that in the here. So so we have this clock, and he's holding in his hand a what?
A brain, but it's mind,
A mind.
on earthly things.
Okay, and yeah, he's placing it on the earth. So because that's to help us to remember we're not to put our mind on earthly things. Okay.
Yep.
Got that?
We'll see.
We'll see. And then 4, we have a pier. So I'd say to my grandson, when you think of the pier, what do you think of? And so here we have an eye on a can. I can. Can you put that together? Eye on a can is what?
So there's an eye on the can and there's a cross.
Okay, well, before we get to the cross, so we have an eye on the can, so I can. Just say,
I can do all things.
I
through
can,
Christ.
right? So I can.
I can.
I can. And the can is through the cross, or through Christ. So I can through.
I can through Christ.
Okay, y'all recognize the verse? I can through Christ do all things. And that's on the pier. So I say pier, he tells me what's going on the pier. I say PM or clock, he tells me what the clock is doing. He's putting his mind on earthly things. Make sense? And so you can, a child, our 5-year-old, grandson has no problems remembering those pictures. So you think you can remember those pictures? So if I say PETA, what comes to mind?
All right, PETA. There's PETA, it had hands pointing at a cross, had some chains on his arms. So you said Paul. Paul is in chains for Christ.
Okay, so Paul's in chains for Christ, right?
Good job. All right, you got
Is that
it.
right?
Okay.
Woo!
Hey, you did pretty good.
Well,
Yeah, you got a handkerchief. He's kind of sweating up here. All right, piano. Tell me about the piano.
Okay, so piano had one hand holding a star, another hand holding a book. So, shine for the universe.
We sound like what? What is
Shine like stars as we hold forward the book of life.
Come on.
All right.
That's
there
it. You got it. You got it.
All right. Don't look back.
I'm
Just
not
look.
looking
Okay. Then we have the mind, the clock. What? Tell me about the clock.
Oh, PM, right?
Yeah, PM.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so it's a clock, and it's holding a brain on the earth. So, mind on earthly things.
Okay.
You
is that-
shouldn't put your
Okay,
mind on
that's not a
earthly
good thing, is it, to have our mind on earthly things, right? You're doing pretty good. You got 3 out of 3.
Yes.
What's the other word?
Here's one more. This determines whether you get a C or an A. But this is a pier. Tell me about the pier.
So there's a pier, there's a cross, there's an eye on a can through it. So I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Oh, good.
Woo!
Yes. So good. All right. Well, great. Well, good deal. He did it. So they're very simple pictures, right? And so what I'm doing is when I'm telling my grandson the key word, PETA, piano, PM, pier, I'm teaching him without him knowing it, the system. And so let me explain to you what the system is. He's only 5, so he doesn't even read yet. He doesn't understand words and all that. But so that's why I don't teach him that. But later, when he's able to do all that, he'll be able to know almost very quickly knowing the system. He'll be able to surmise both what the book and the chapter number is. That key word tells you the book and the chapter number. So I want to try to explain that to you real quick. All you have to learn other than the pictures themselves is 10 things. And these 10 things, I'll teach you the first 4. All right, are you ready? You're all involved now. Not just Stephen, y'all get to be involved. So when I say each, for each number, there's a consonant associated with it. So let me teach you the first 4. So there's only 10 of them you have to learn. I'm going to teach you the first 4 already, right here in just a few minutes, just in a few little short time. When I say number 1, put up a 1 finger on each hand And cross them over, and what letter do you get? T. So 1, think of the letter T. Number 2, now you have to use your mind a little bit, your exaggeration, but if you could round that off a little bit, that'd be like a small letter N, okay? When I say 2, you say N. 3 is the letter M. 4, what's the last letter in the word for? R. Okay, so you think you got it? And 5 is the letter L. We did Philippians, so that's only 4 chapters. So if I say 2, what's the letter? N. If I say M, what number is that? 3. If I say R, what is that? 4. If I say 1, T. Okay, you got it? Everybody understand that? Get that so far? So the reason why we have, for example, let's go back up here just a tad. The reason we have Peter for chapter 1 is because the first letter in the picture word is the first letter in the book. So Philippians starts with the letter P, so Peter's got to start, or Peter has to start with the letter P, doesn't it? So that's why we have Peter for Philippians 1, P and P. And we know it's chapter 1, why? Because of the letter C. So your next consonant sound in that word is going to be a T.
Always the next consonant?
Yes. So if I said chapter 2, we know it's going to start with, we know 2 things. It's going to start with what letter? It's going to start with the letter P, and then the next consonant sound is going to be what? Letter N. All right. Make sense? Chapter 4, we know Philippians 4, it's got to start with what letter? P, and it's got to have what in that other? R. Appear. Well, how did we get appear, right? And so that tells, so the peer, that tells him it's Philippians and it's chapter 4. So I'm driving down the street and I'm thinking, wow, I'd like to remember what's in Samuel chapter 2. What I know already. It's got to start with the letter S, and the next consonant sound is going to be what? An N. So I see this sauna. That's the key word, sauna. And then that sauna is a huge hand that is praying. Hand helps me remember it's Hannah. Hannah praying because she couldn't have a child. Eli saw her praying and thought she was drunk. Remember the story? That's in Samuel, 1 Samuel chapter 2. So it's just easy. So if you're driving down the street and you can't remember, you can almost remember the word just because of the system. I bet you can probably figure out my key word for Joshua chapter 1. It's got to start with what letter? J, and it's going to, what's the next sound? It's going to be a T. What word do you know that starts with a J and has a T in it? This is the next consonant sound. Jet. That's the key word for it. So Joshua chapter 1, there's a picture of a jet standing up with a big mouth, and he's got the book of the law inside of his mouth sticking out. Do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Joshua was told, that's the picture for Joshua chapter 1. All right, does that make sense? So it's, I mean, all you have to learn are 10 things. If for each number, there are certain consonant sounds that go with that number, which is how I get the key word for the pictures. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So when you get to Joshua 11, it starts back over again?
So, yeah, that's a really good question. You're not supposed to ask all those questions. So actually what I do with that, to me it works real well. So I just go up in the alphabet. So Joshua chapters 1 through 10 are going to start with J, and they're going to do the same thing, right? So, but when I get to 11 through 20, what I do is I just go up to the next letter in the alphabet in the order that it comes. So the letter after J is what? K. So 11 through 20, my keywords for Joshua are going to start with the letter K. So I put K and T together, and my keyword is kite. Good. That's the word, yeah. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Steve?
All right, so I'm going to ask a hard question.
Okay.
What about kings? Because that's going to start with K.
Right. So, and they're going to be the same. They're always going to be the same word. So 1 Kings chapter 1 is kite. 2 Kings chapter 1 is going to be a kite as well, right? But so the way I distinguish the difference between the two, so I don't confuse them, and you think of it in this way: if we go to your house, say you have kids, how do your kids know the difference in their bedroom and your bedroom? They're both bedrooms, right? Location and what's in it, right? So my kite in Kings is taking place at a particular place over here that I have, whether it's grandma's house or wherever I have associated that book with, as opposed to a different place. Like Matthew and Mark, my name is Mark, right? So the house I grew up in, the yard and all that, all my pictures are happening there at that place. In the yard, front yard of the house I grew up in. Matthew's happening across my neighbor's house across the street. And so the mat at my house is doing something different than the mat over the neighbor's house. And so that's the way you distinguish the difference. So that way too, how many chapters are there in the Bible?
66.
There's 6
Chapters.
Yeah, trick question, huh? 1,100 and 1,100. I just went blank. 1,189. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. There you go. So the good thing is I don't have 1,189 different pictures, keyword pictures. It ends up being like 200, a little over 200, I think 220, because you're using M, times. But the good news is you don't use any picture more than 11 times for the whole Bible. And that's only the letter M, and that's the only book you use 11 times. Everything else is less than that. A is like 2 books, so you use twice, and so on. So it doesn't get, I did it that way so it doesn't get too complicated with too many pictures.
Okay, so if I have a kite, you may have an image where there's a kite that's being struck by lightning or something, and then you have a kite that's eating breakfast.
Yeah.
That's what you mean by using the same word picture?
Right, and where it would be at.
Okay.
I think where it's at is almost more important it's just as important as what they're doing. Because when I think of, like if you said to me, Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, my mind instantly has already gone to a place where all those pictures are taking place. It's a field across the street from a place we used to live at when we were in New York State. It's all a field over there. So instantly my mind's there, and then when you said a number, then I'll put the key word in what that word is doing at that place.
So you encourage us, as we're teaching this to our kids, do you encourage us
I would do it
in
in a place, yeah. I would do that from the get-go.
You can show them
So
like
Matthew.
Matthew.
If he did so I've done Corinthians and I've done Colossians with my 5-year-old grandson. So the chapter 1 of each of those books is cat, right? That's the key picture. So he needed to distinguish that. So one of them is happening, I can't remember where he's got them at, but one's happening at his school where he goes for daycare, as opposed to his house, I think is the other one he has.
Can you show them those pictures? Would that be hard to get?
Which pictures?
Like where it is like that, like what you just said about JJ or Matthew and Mark with the mats, how the mats are in it's a different picture.
Let's see. So you saw the picture a while ago with Corinthians chapter 1, right? The cross, the cat and the cross. So this is Colossians 1. Is
Right there.
a different cat.
Go down. There you go.
So that cross is in him.
The other one, the cross is outside.
Right. And so, yeah, so if I were to explain that picture to you, the cross is in him, so that represents the idea of Christ in you, Christ in me, Christ in you. And then the treasure, that's a hope chest. And what's another word we call the flag? Old what?
Glory.
Old glory. So
The hope of glory.
Christ in you, the hope of glory. Hope, chest, and glory. So with my 5-year-old though, I basically taught him, I didn't teach him all of that. The cross in him was enough to remember that. And he'll tell me, Christ in you, the hope of glory. So, if you don't need it, don't use it. Don't do more than you need to do, right? So these just become triggers for your mind, a mental filing system for you to quickly recall something. So, But again, the neat thing, a lot of these pictures are objects, everyday objects. We're walking down the street and then we see a can on the street and I say, hey, what does that can make you think of? I've always kind of felt like to teach the Bible has been a forced issue. It's like, okay, let's come over here, time out from life, come over here, we'll spend a little time, we'll do the Bible, and then we'll go back to resuming with life. You ever feel like that? Whereas with the everyday objects, hey, you see a can, well, what does that make you think? And it becomes a very natural, spontaneous way just to talk about the scriptures, which is pretty cool. Or cat. See a cat cross the street, hey, what does that cat make you think of? Well, does it make you think of, you know, he may talk about Corinthians 1, how we're not to be divided, or the cat, Christ in you, the hope of glory kind of thing. It's a neat opportunity to teach. Did I do the 6-year deal with you? Talk about that? I didn't mention it. So again, I think I may have.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I guess
Yeah,
you did.
if you did like
You
5
did.
chapters and you can do it like 10 minutes and then just take the rest of the week to talk about it. And we always act it out or do something fun with it too and just reinforce it. And he picks up on all kinds of ideas and what that means. If you just did it for a week, just reiterated that over and over, and then next week did 5 more, 10 minutes, right? And just review it so he kind of gets the pictures start to stick. If you do that 10 months out of the year and did that for 6 years, you know the whole Bible. And that's going at I think, seems to be a relatively easy pace in my mind. But that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? So by the time he goes to junior high, he could have that as a foundation to learn, you know, so much more of the scriptures. Than he'd be so much further than what I have ever been at that point in my life for sure. But so, any other questions on it? It's kind of.
I was just going to add that when you said it's not forced, our 5-year-old comes with a suitcase of toys, and in that suitcase is his picture of the scripture book, and he hands it to Papa and says, Papa, let's do a new book. I want to do it. So he's initiating it because it's fun. And so that's cool.
Enjoys it. And we don't spend a lot, I mean, we don't have to, if I set him down and said we're going to do this for an hour, it'd be kind of a tough deal. But that's the neat thing. Again, the pictures, you can learn it quickly, and you review. I generally review the whole Bible every week. But I'm running through it. Picture to picture to picture to picture, chapter to chapter to chapter, just so I can recall it. And then if I want to stop and think about something or meditate on some particular scripture, I can do that. I have that choice. I have that option to do. There's freedom in it. It gives you the freedom to do it when you know it, right? The ones who have the freedom are the ones who have paid the price to learn it. You see a guy playing the violin with, looks like it's so easy, it's because they put in the time to learn it, right? They've been the ones disciplined to do it. It's a lot funner than just trying to rotely remember scripture or going over it and over it and over it, kind of trying to remember it without any kind of association. It just, it does give you that hook where it's associated with something, so it's much more easy to recall and to build upon. You can change the pictures, you can add to the pictures. If there are other things in the chapter, you could always add something to the picture, something you wanted to remember specifically that's not in the pictures, you can add to it. You can do anything with them you want. Again, it gives you that mental filing system to be able to recall any and every chapter in the Bible that you want to recall. Does the system itself make sense to you? Is that, did it throw anybody? Sometimes it'll throw some folks off a little bit. I feel like you kind of understood it a little bit. Any questions on it? You have a question?
Just curious, what's your picture for Judges 3?
You know what? I don't think I have that with me, but so Judges 3 as a picture. So let's put it together. Judges is going to start with what letter? J. 3 is M. So jam is my picture, but it's a door jam. All right. And in that picture, there's a picture of a jam and a sword through a big, huge, obese character. And that's the story of King Ehud. You know, and the guy who's, you know, he's the judge, he stuck his sword in, and it says it kind of got lost, his hand got lost in the fat of the, you know, this that story was, so the judges, so that's the picture for that. Was that the story you were thinking?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. So, it's cool because you say a book and a chapter, your mind instantly processes that, and you got the picture and the place, and so it's just, you remember what that picture is doing, and you've got the chapter. So it's pretty cool to be able to almost instantly be able to recall information that you have. So anyway, yes.
Well, I'll help you sell it real quick because obviously I'm not good with memory. I met you in your booth yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was looking through it. I was like, okay, because when I saw it in the this deal, I was like, every chapter, come on, what? I don't think so. And then I sat and talked to you, and you kind of explained me the system or whatever. And I bought it, like kind of sight unseen, basically, because I'm convinced that the biggest problem I have is including Bible memory into our work day as a family, without it feeling like a chore or without it feeling tedious. So I think the system that you've made, I think, has solved that problem. Of course, I mean, I got the email last night, so I haven't downloaded it yet, but I'm going to.
Good.
So I have hope that was money well spent. Because I think my kids, because I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, 8 and 6, and now a 3-month-old daughter. And I think they're just competitive enough that memorizing it and having these little triggers where we see a cat and say, and they go off with it. I'm super excited about it. So thank you for making the system. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks. Thank you. If you get it, and I'd love to help in any way. I've told Stephen, no one's ever taken me up on this, but if you have any questions about it, email me and I'd make a video or call you or whatever. This is, in my mind, there's nothing greater we could be putting in our minds than the Word of God. There's just nothing more important. And so if I can help in any way, it would be a great joy. You wouldn't be inconvenienced. You don't think, hey, I can't reach out because I don't want to inconvenience him. No, you're stopping me from being blessed. So it would be a joy to be able to do that in any way. I'll just tell you this, so there's 12 different sets that make up the whole Bible, 3 that do all the New Testament, 9 on the Old Testament. We have the PDF downloadables. They're basically $10 for each deal, so it's not a huge amount. A couple of cups of Starbucks coffee will get you a set, right? So, but again, anything we can do to help, we'd be glad to do that. We'd love to do that. We're going to give away a free set at the end, and so we're going to have a name drawn, and you just come by and sign up for the email, and I promise you won't get bombarded with emails, as we all tend to do, get every day. So anyway, come by and sign up, and we'd love to do that. That's pretty well the system. Unless you want me to explain anything else, I'd be glad to. Feel like you kind of got an idea of how it works? Yeah. So.